newer condos aren't automatically better and older condos aren't automatically money pits. I've seen buyers overpay for new and overlook some of the best long-term value in the city, simply because no one explained the difference properly. My name is Anthony Malfair, co-team leader for the Property Boys, and I've been helping clients in real estate for about 10 years. And my goal is to make sure you are making the most informed decision possible when buying, selling, or investing in real estate. If you're deciding between a newer building and an older one, you're basically choosing between two different styles of value. Newer condos often win on lifestyle, convenience, and easy mode ownership, at least early on. Older condos often win on size, layout, and long-term land value fundamentals. But you have to do more homework. Let's break it down by what actually matters. Number one, size and layout, livable versus marketable. Older condos that are kind of 40 years plus tend to win here. Bigger square footage for the price, and it's not even close in many areas. More functional layouts, real dining areas, wider hallways, larger bedrooms, more storage, often higher ceiling heights than you'd expect. Not always, but many have solid kind of proportions. The catch, some older buildings have awkward quirks too. Chopped up kitchens, less open concept, smaller windows depending on the era and the design. Fewer Instagram-friendly finishes unless renovated. New condos under 20 years or so usually feel more modern, but smaller. Open concept layouts that photograph well and feel more current. Modern kitchens, wider windows, more kind of clean lines. Trade-off is often smaller bedrooms, tighter living space, dens that pretend to be a bedroom, less storage, less separation for people who work from home or have kids. The bottom line, if you value day-to-day living, then older condos kind of usually win. If you value a more modern feel, plus some more resale appeal to the widest audience, newer will often win. Number two, monthly fees and operating costs, the part that most people underestimate. Older condos often have higher fees, but not always for the reason people think. So, why can fees be higher? Well, first off, bigger units usually drive larger maintenance costs. Fees are often tied to, the square footage of the unit. Older mechanical systems, more maintenance, major capital projects over time, garages, elevators, windows, plumbing, sometimes less efficient energy systems. But here's the twist. Some older buildings have higher fees because they include more. Heat, hydro, water, cable, even internet sometimes are included in older buildings. You sometimes get better staffing, concierge, superintendent, security, that kind of stuff. So your higher maintenance fee might actually replace bills you'd be paying anyways in a newer condo. Now, what you want to watch for: underfunded reserve funds, upcoming major projects with no plan, a history of special assessments, which tends to mean that they can't project what they need to do in the building, high insurance claims, or I should say a history of high insurance claims. Newer condos will normally have lower fees early, but they can and they will climb. Newer builds typically start with lower fees because everything is new and the reserve fund requirements are just ramping up. But fees will often rise. The building ages and systems start to need real maintenance. The board adjusts for actual operating costs because at the beginning it's kind of like just projections. Insurance premiums increase. This hits newer buildings too, right? So the bottom line, don't just compare the fee number, compare what's included plus the building's financial health. Number three, amenities. Flashy versus functional. New condos usually win on amenities. You're more likely to get a nicer gym, spin rooms, yoga studios, a better party room. Sometimes you have a co-working space, rooftop pools, pet washes. You might have lockers for packages that are delivered, modern lobbies and common areas. The catch is that amenities are expensive to run and maintain. So pools, big concierge, fancy features equals higher long-term operating costs. Older condos have fewer amenities, but sometimes better, core value. Some older buildings have, basic gyms, party rooms, maybe a pool, larger grounds, more parking availability, more visitor parking, depending on the building. So the bottom line here is if you actually use amenities weekly, the newer buildings may be worth it. If you don't, you may be paying monthly for features that you don't really touch. Number four, building quality and construction. So there's the whole, they don't build them like they used to kind of thought. Older condos are often solid, but not automatically better because of that. Many older buildings were built with, thicker concrete, stronger sound separation. Again, not always, but often. Fewer lightweight finishes, but older also means aging plumbing, old electrical systems in some cases, older window systems. You have possible asbestos in some components, which you can typically manage, but it's still something that's relevant. Mechanical upgrades become a fact of life. Newer condos, more modern systems, but variability in build quality, we could say. Newer buildings have modern elevators, windows, HVAC, safety systems, more efficient layouts and services, often better energy efficiency, but build quality varies widely by builder and era. Some newer buildings are fantastic. Some have ongoing issues, water penetration, window failures, HVAC design flaws, a lot of condo corporate growing pains too. So the bottom line here is you're not buying a year built. You're buying a specific building with a specific track record. That's what you really want to look for. Number 5, special assessments and reserve funds. So where cheap turns expensive. This is the part that can make an older condo a home run or a nightmare. Older condos, higher risk of big ticket projects, but also more predictable patterns. At 40 plus years old, a building has likely already faced major retrofit cycles, elevator modernization, garage repairs, window replacements, balcony restoration, that kind of stuff. The good news is if those were done properly and the reserve fund is healthy, you can be, walking into a stable situation. The bad news, if they weren't done, you could be walking into a special assessment or a spike in fees. Newer condos will give you a lower risk early, but unknowns later on. You just don't know what's going to happen. And that's with any condo. A newer building might not have a long track record to show. So chronic water issues, recurring mechanical failures, insurance claim patterns, board management, quality over time could be another issue. So the bottom line here, a well-run older condo can be safer than a poorly built newer one, right? Paperwork matters more than age is kind of what we're going at here. Number 6, future price growth potential. This is something that I try to key in on, especially with clients that are looking to buy for a short term. So what actually tends to appreciate better? This depends heavily on location, market cycle, but here's the general pattern. Newer condos are easier to resell in the short term. They show well, they rent easily, they appeal to a broad buyer pool, especially first-time buyers. Newish feels safe to many buyers, right? If you're a new buyer, you don't want to think about, special assessments or renovations. But you often pay a premium for that newness. Older condos, a stronger value per square foot long-term. Bigger space means more end-user demand rather than rental, especially as people age and work from home or have families. They'll have mature neighborhoods usually. An established building can hold value well. It doesn't necessarily mean it will appreciate in value, but it should hold the value. Renovated old units can outperform because buyers get modern finishes plus real space. But appreciation depends on how well the building is managed, whether the fees stay reasonably relative to what's included. Because a lot of times if maintenance fees rise, the price will drop to accommodate that, to balance that out. So here's a practical takeaway. If 2 condos are in the same general area, the one with better livability plus financial health usually wins long-term, regardless of age. Number 7, what type of buyer each one fits best? Newer condo is usually best if you want move-in ready with minimal renovation, you care about amenities and modern finishes, and you're planning a shorter hold, 3 to 7 years. You want easier rent appeal if you're investing. You want less immediate building maintenance risk. Older condo is usually best if you want space and layout that feels kind of like a home rather than a condo unit. You plan to stay longer, like say 7 to 15 plus years. You're okay doing renos or buying one that's already updated. You want value per square foot, and you're willing to review documents very carefully or have someone do it for you because those older buildings tend to need more due diligence. So here's my no BS checklist for choosing either one. Regardless of age, I want to know 1, reserve fund health and upcoming major projects. 2, history of special assessments. 3, insurance claim patterns, right? Water damage is a big one. 4, condo fee trend over the last 3 to 5 years. 5, management quality and board stability. 6, rules like pets, rental, short-term renovation rules. 7, unit livability, bedroom sizes, storage, natural light. It's a huge for me in condos. Noise. And then number 8, parking and locker and whether they actually matter for resale in that area. If you're downtown, those don't really necessarily matter. So in conclusion, a good newer building is an easy lifestyle-friendly buy. Just don't assume low fees stay low forever. A good older building can be one of the best value plays in the city, but it only works if the building is financially strong and well run. If you're buying a condo or freehold real estate and you don't want to rely on marketing hype or outdated advice, this is exactly what I break down here. I post real world real estate insights and neighborhood specific breakdowns so that it's useful. So subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.